Welcome to worship with the Unitarian Universalist community of Charlotte. I'm Jay Leach, one of the ministers of this congregation, and I'm pleased that you've chosen to access this virtual service, whether you are a longtime member or a relative newcomer. I'm here in my home office, where I have been confined for so very much of these past more than 7 months. I'm really grateful to have a dedicated space within which to work. And yet, I am almost certain that these four walls have inched ever closer together since I first began working here way back in March. I thought this week about Van Gogh, who in May of 1889 voluntarily committed himself to an asylum, unable to deny his severe mental illness. For a year and a week, he lived in the confines of a modest room with an adjoining room serving as his studio. When his illness raged at its worst, he was forbidden to enter the studio and relegated to simple pencil drawings, some of which are being displayed in today's service. Imagine that great artist experiencing such a severe confinement, and yet producing an immense body of works, including some of his most beloved pieces. Even in his most dire moments, when his life was so severely limited, the impulse that drove Van Gogh simply could not be confined. It's one reminder today for a service in which we're reflecting together on our months of confinement, what we felt, experienced, learned, as so much of our freedom has been taken away. In 1963, the great jazz pianist Billy Taylor, assisted by Dick Dallas, put his longings for true freedom into what would become his most enduring song. I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. A version of it is included in our gray hymnals, from which we sang together in a service a couple of years ago. You can listen in on us singing and perhaps sing along together today. You may also use this time to go to our public Facebook page and post words of welcome to friends and visitors alike. When the service continues, I assure you, as I have been for months, I'll be right here.
Hi, I'm Rocky Hendrick, member of the Board of Trustees.
And I'm Mary Ann Hendrick, a member of your finance team.
We light our chalice today on behalf of our community. May the light that shines from within the walls of our home reach across the distance between us. Create again the connection that supports and sustains us.
May it shine beyond all walls into our larger community, bringing our shared commitment to transformation into places of brokenness and pain.
We light this chalice.
Good morning. My name is Paul Wilson, and I'm a new member of the Board of Trustees. Here is a reading from Pandemic Poems by Kim Stafford, a poem entitled Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. There was a time we didn't say its name, Corona, or its nickname, COVID-19. Remember the time we rambled forth, mingled, shook a stranger's hand? Now, behind our doors, we remember yesterday. This is the time we scan the news for numbers, so many stricken, so many dead. We study odds, precautions, symptoms. We hunker down, tally our provisions, learn who to trust as we survive today. There will be a time all this is yesterday. What we suffered, what we learned, how we chose to change. Then we will story chronicles of kindness. We live for tomorrow. Now's our time to remember, live, and prophesy, each asking, how shall we become a wiser world?
It started with a low creaking sound, all but inaudible. We weren't, let's be honest, most of us weren't worried. The almost imperceptible rasp of a faint, far away, oddly named virus. Many of us asked, I know I did, what's the big deal? The sound got a little bit louder. A case, another, a handful, a few dozen. We can edit our memories, now claim prescience in support of some political agenda. but we were still free to move about within the usual parameters of our lives. And most of us did so with little or no concern. School buses rumbled through the early dawn light. Cars backed up on freeways and thoroughfares. Travelers queued in airport security lines. Crowds assembled in restaurants, school cafeterias, concert venues, sports arenas, and sanctuaries. As life continued for most, not much altered from the usual routine, the din of our activity drowned out the ever-increasing sound. Then, do you recall? For a few days, a week or two, we began to really wonder, feel concerned, because we could no longer ignore the now obvious creaking sound. With stunningly sudden swiftness, it happened. The doors, first in our largest northeastern cities, then like some spill spreading throughout the nation and world, the doors slammed shut. The doors to places we'd never imagined ever being closed. The doors to places we needed, wanted, enjoyed. The doors to places where people we loved were living. And the doors to our own homes, all slamming shut in ways few of us had ever experienced. We were confined. Behind closed doors we ourselves did not close. The shocking truth hit us. We can't go out. We couldn't go out because there were so few places to go, and even more because we were rightfully terrified to do so. Unless, of course, we were deemed essential. One of the ones identified as necessary to make the rest of our lives as comfortable as possible in our confinement. For grocery workers, sanitation workers, delivery people, mail carriers, truckers, nurses, orderlies, doctors, technicians, first responders, repair people. There was a whole different and potentially even more perilous meaning to confinement. Confine, verb from Middle French confiner, to border, to shut up, enclose, restrict within bounds, keep within limits. Confinement, synonyms of which include captivity, detainment, incarceration, restraint. Confinement has to do with barriers and borders, with restrictions, limitations, with not being free.
For one of our readings this morning, I'm offering a poem by Maya Angelou called The Caged Bird. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends, and dips his wings in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But the bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The cage bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longs for still, and his tune is heard on a distant hill, for the cage bird sings of freedom. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade wind softens through the sighing trees, and the fat worm waits on the dawn's bright lawn, and the name of the sky is his own. But a cage bird stands on the grave of dreams, his shadow shouts of the nightmare screams, his wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The cage bird sings with the fearful trill of things unknown but longs for still, and his tune is heard on a distant hill, for the cage bird's song of freedom.
Writer Kathleen Norris admitted, "Being closed in makes us edgy." Edgy. Well, yes, but not just that, of course. Also anxious, frustrated, lethargic, fearful, maybe even some days despondent, on many disoriented. Maya Angelou says, as you heard, that the caged bird, unable to leap on the back of the wind and float downstream till the current ends, sings then of rage, fear, longing. How about you? How have these past more than 7 months been for you? What are the primary emotions that you've experienced during our collective confinement? As days led to weeks, months to the changing of seasons, and as there's no realistic possibility that all closed doors will open anytime soon, what have you been? What are you feeling? We now realize life as we knew it isn't coming back. Like so much else, it has been forever submerged in the tsunami of this pandemic. This virus, this crisis, and the aftermath of it all will continue to confine us in ways we know and in ways we can't yet even imagine. If we were hesitant to admit it before, we can no longer deny it at all. We are not in control. We are not in control. To acknowledge today that we are not in control is to put our fingers on the pulse of one of life's deepest truths. It is its own kind of deep spiritual truth, one with which we must each wrestle in our own ways. But of course, that's not nearly the whole story. We must not confuse a lack of control with a lack of choices. Confinement is a profound part of our lives, but it is certainly not all that is true about us. Sheena Iyengar, professor at Columbia's Business School, reminded us in her TED Talk, for animals, the confinement of the body is the confinement of the whole being, but a person can choose freedom even when they have no physical autonomy. Hers is a contemporary version of Viktor Frankl's reflections on his personal experiences in the Nazi death camps. Remarkably, having dwelt at one of the very lowest rings of hell that we humans have ever created, Frankl nonetheless asserted, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Everything, he wrote, everything can be taken from a person, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Everything can be taken from a person, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. What are our choices? Washington Irving, our nation's first celebrity writer, described a visit to an ancient keep of a castle where James I of Scotland was confined for years. Reflecting later, he writes in that excessively floral prose of his time, "Some minds corrode and become inactive under the loss of personal liberty. Others grow morbid and irritable. But it is the nature," he says, "it is the nature of the poet to become tender and imaginative in the loneliness of confinement." He likens such a soul to a caged nightingale who nonetheless offers a charming melody. Well, perhaps that sets the bar a bit high for those of us non-poets with no particularly charming melodies to offer. The sentiment, however, can be a guide. Being closed off from the external world, at least in the familiar ways to which we are accustomed, may be the invitation to enter more deeply the internal world of our own souls. Confinement may call us to the discovery of some deeper spiritual meaning, some spiritual resource able not just to sustain us, but to invigorate and renew us. It may summon us to assess our lives anew, sorting what is of real value from superficialities that can be discarded. Such was the counsel of poet David White. Sometimes, he writes, it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness. He actually calls it that, the sweet confinement of your aloneness. Sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. Is that a choice in my confinement? To ask of those things we know, of those people we know, does this thing, this one, bring me alive? Does association with this person bring forth my better self? Is the attention I'm giving to certain things really life-giving? Now, in the sweet confinement, we might take inventory, ask, what brings me alive? This is a choice, even maybe especially under these conditions. To turn off Netflix, to tune out Twitter, to quell and quiet the relentless chatter of endlessly breaking news long enough to listen deeply to our lives, to our souls, to walk, sit, breathe, pray, reflect, to hold silence long enough that if life were issuing some new summons, we might actually be able to hear it. There is a collection of the writings of the late Tupac Shakur, assembled under the name The Rose That Grew from Concrete, one of which is untitled. Please wake me when I'm free. I cannot bear captivity where my culture, I'm told, holds no significance. I'll wither and I'll die in ignorance. But my inner eye can see a race who reigned as kings in another place. The green of trees were rich and full, and every man spoke of beautiful men and women together as equals. War was gone because all was peaceful. But now, like a nightmare, I wake to see that I live like a prisoner of poverty. Please wake me when I'm free. I cannot bear captivity, for I would rather be stricken blind than to live without expression of mind. The late Tupac Shakur offers a modern-day lament, a young man's anguished cry of agonizing pain. I cannot, he cries, I cannot bear captivity. He's not writing about a pandemic. He's not bemoaning restrictions caused by a virus threatening everyone's health. He's not irritable, frustrated, not self-pitying. No, Tupac's lament comes from a deeper place. I cannot bear captivity where my culture, I'm told, holds no significance. He speaks as a young Black man whose experience of confinement is a permanent condition. Confined by structures, by systems declaring that his life doesn't really matter. This time of confinement offers us the choice to go deep within. It also offers us the choice to allow our experiences to foster a deeper sense of connection to those who are confined in more profound ways. For whom does life create such barriers? Black, brown, indigenous people facing the impediments of our white supremacist system. Poor, unhoused, working class people forever facing the impediments of an economic system rooted in colonizing capitalism. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, and questioning people forever facing the impediments of a social system steeped in heteronormative, cis-normative, puritanical impulses. Differently abled, disabled people forever facing the impediments of a system created and sustained by those willfully ignoring the fact that abledness is a temporary condition. Mentally ill people, people with dementia, those on the spectrum, forever facing the impediments of a system of dehumanizing shame. Yes, these days of confinement are hard on all of us, but they are not equally hard on all of us. Some of us are secure, safe, thriving economically, even if also chafing, understandably, under the relentless limitations imposed by the pandemic. But some who were already confined are so much more deeply confined now. We have the choice to lift our gaze beyond ourselves, beyond our situations. We can raise our voices even from within our homes. We can write letters and checks. We can advocate, send messages of encouragement and support. We can speak to those within our circles of influence. We can listen, learn, continue working to notice not what is wrong with them, but how we too are participants in systems and structures of oppression. Some of you have been doing just that. When the opportunity came along to help create more viable housing options for those with criminal records, you said yes. Then, from the safety of your homes, phones, computers, you've been using your voices to co-conspire with those who are leading us in these efforts. Others have been engaged in the political process, in protests, in supporting protesters, in advocating, teaching, caring, healing. You've recognized that there are always choices, and you've said yes, turning your attention toward those so much more deeply confined. From deep within, from a spiritually grounded place, we can join the anguished lament. Along with the Tupacs of our time, we can say, we cannot bear captivity, recognizing that none of us is really free until all of us are truly free.
Who knows what time it is? Is it sunset? Is it sunrise? Someone talk to me, prove it to me that I'm alive. You left me in this concrete hole, must be hoping that I will die, that I will die. 4 walls, 23 hours, 4 walls, 23 hours, 4 walls, 23 hours. I'm trying to kill time, but it don't wanna die. Demons playing movies in my mind. Now it's a trilogy. They show me everyone I heard and remind me how they've hurt me. They show me how the future will be just like the past. When I sleep it keeps running. How long will this last? 4 walls, 23 hours, 4 walls, 23 hours, 4 walls, 23 hours. Time's trying to kill me, but I'm scared to die. My teacher once told our class, We were all made of stars. She told us we could shine. No matter where we are, doubt she had this in mind. How am I supposed to shine in here behind these bars? Do I have strength to dance with these demons? Can I free my mind from this cage? There's a crack in the door where the light can get in. Could I be drawn to it instead of my rage? 4 walls, 23 hours, 4 walls, 23 hours, 4 walls, 23 hours, day after day, after day, after day, after day, after day, after day.
Welcome to the service. My name is Catherine Barnes. I've been a member of this community for 24 years, and I'm currently serving on the Board of Trustees. We especially welcome our visitors, and we're glad you found us at this virtual location. If you're in the Charlotte area and you'd like to know more about our community, a good place to start would be to email our membership coordinator, Kelly Green, at kelly@uuccharlotte.org. Either of our ministers would also welcome the opportunity to talk with you, and you can request that conversation in your email to Kelly. Again, welcome. When Jay told me that the topic of today's service was confinement, I felt a wave of, if not nostalgia, then nostalgia's first cousin. If, unlike me, you are not an avid reader of historical fiction, confinement was a term used in days gone by for the 6-week period following a woman giving birth, during which period she was confined or kept apart from society. 19 years ago, I was pregnant with my second child, and I went into premature labor. And as a result of that, I had to go on bed rest for 6 weeks. It was a rigid protocol. I got up in the morning, I shuffled to the couch, and there I stayed. I ate from the couch, I worked from the couch, I tried to be a mother to my toddler from the couch until bedtime, and then I shuffled back to bed. That was it. I didn't go anywhere, I didn't see very many people, I just shuffled back and forth. I joked with my sister that I was so efficient that I was having my confinement prior to giving birth, but the truth of the matter was I was frustrated and worried and very lonely. My confinement at least came with the promise of great joy at the end, unlike the case for a lot of folks whose confinement arises from health or age or incarceration. What I gained from my confinement, which was a 6-pound, 1-ounce force of nature, was a treasure, and I'm grateful for her every day. But it wasn't an experience I wanted to relive. Oh well. As Yogi Berra said, it's deja vu all over again, only this time we're all confined. And many, if not most of us, are frustrated and worried and lonely. I know I am. I am frustrated on a daily basis for the amount that I have to rely on technology. It's a major act of will on my part not to fling my laptop across the room the umpteenth time my Zoom call freezes up. I'm worried about a host of things, from the health of my family members to the state of the world. And I miss my sisters and my friends that I can't see for reasons of distance or health. But in this time of confinement, when I have less ability to distract myself and fewer things that I need to run off and go do, I've had some deep and heartfelt conversations with my family. I tell my friends I love them a lot more often than I did a year ago. My coworkers and I have discussed our fears and concerns in a way we never would have done a year ago. Life feels less glib and less polished and more human than it did a year ago. And that's a treasure. And I'm grateful for it.
I'm frankly amazed at what we're continuing to create as a community, even in the challenge of this time. As of this past week, both of our core groups are underway, exploring the deep historical implications of cultural and economic injustice. Today, our very first in-person activity this afternoon from 2 to 4 at the green space in front of the Mint Museum on Randolph, socially distanced games for all ages. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m., the first of our Exploring Barriers and Boundaries Through Books series, a discussion of American marriage led by Andos Helms. Later this month, a Member Appreciation Night, Halloween edition. And next month, an even more robust series of adult religious education, spiritual development offerings. Subscribe to or watch for currents in your email on Thursdays, or visit our remarkable new website to find out more about all of this. Friends, we are a thriving congregation. Still, we are a caring congregation also. We hold each other in the hard times, including today our prayers for our member Morty Rubel, now under the care of hospice. Our love to you, Morty and Shirley. We join each other in amplifying the joy of good times, including today, celebrating together the marriage last Saturday of our members Chris Clark and Denise Weldon, who met on our grounds. I was delighted to officiate an actual wedding. Congratulations, Denise and Chris. We are a concerned congregation, holding especially our nation in our hearts in these unnerving, disquieting times. Eve and I are here. Our congregational care team is here. Please let us know if you have needs that we can hold with you.
Hi, my name is Paul Wilson, and I'm a new member of the Board of Trustees. Jean and I moved to Charlotte in the summer of 2012 in pursuit of our grandchildren, who had begun arriving here right around the turn of the century. When we got here, we already knew from many previous visits to UUCC that we would become members as soon as we could. We knew we would find here people who would be good friends and a community we could learn from in our common search for deeper spiritual meaning and social justice. But as we've lived here these past 8 years, UUCC has become even more central to our lives than we'd expected, and this dreadful time that we are all living through has brought us still closer to everything and everyone in our community. UUCC has given us many rich opportunities to grow and change in good ways. In response, year by year, we've been steadily increasing our annual pledge, working toward the 5% goal, and we plan to do that through the foreseeable future. On behalf of the stewardship team, please let me remind those of you whose pledge month is October that your pledges are due today. If you haven't already done so, please submit your generous pledge as soon as possible. And thanks very much.
There are any number of ways to think about the choices that are ours during this time of confinement. My friend and colleague Lynn Unger offers us yet another, and beautiful words she wrote earlier in this time. I offer them to you today as our meditation, inviting you to settle in, to quiet yourself, and to close your eyes. What if you thought of it as the Jews consider the Sabbath, the most sacred of times? Cease from travel. Cease from buying and selling. Give up just for now on trying to make the world different than it is. Sing. Pray. Touch only those to whom you commit your life. Center down. And when your body has become still, reach out with your heart. Know that we are connected in ways that are terrifying and beautiful. You could hardly deny it now. Know that our lives are in one another's hands. Surely that has become clear. Do not reach out your hands. Reach out your heart. Reach out your words. Reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly where we cannot touch. Promise this world your love, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, so long as we all shall live. Blessed be. We are restricted, limited, confined, and we still have choices. Choose with courage, my friends. Choose with courage until we meet again.